I was struck by Lincoln's observation a few months ago when I was at my daughter's 9th grade science fair school ceremony. I will tell you the background. We loaded up our car with all of her lettuce. Her experiment, okay, it didn't win the blue ribbon, was on comparing the bacteria in pre-washed lettuce versus washed lettuce. And at the end of the whole presentation, she looked the judges in the eye and said, "I have one piece of advice for you. Wash your lettuce." But in any case, I left that science fair after seeing these kids just parade upstairs with all these amazing, amazing experiments, and all these 9th graders who you just wouldn't think would be doing this. I left that in awe of our high school students. They have the curiosity to learn, and they have the determination to compete. But that American spirit of innovation and determination just can't end on the stage of the 9th grade science fair. When I think about this issue, I always remember back to those Beijing Olympics. I don't know if any of you saw the opening ceremony. I watched it with my family on this fuzzy TV. And if you remember the 2,000 drummers that were in perfect synchronization. And when I watched that, I thought, we're in trouble. Well, those drum beats are only getting louder and louder. And while China builds its high-speed rail, we can't simply debate. While India encourages invention and entrepreneurship, we can't just squabble. And while Brazil is adding more and more engineers and scientists every day, we must do more than struggle. So let's look to the future and capture the imagination of the people of Iowa and Minnesota, right? The people that gave us Norman Borlaug, right? He was in both our states. Let's capture that imagination and take it across the nation. I believe a lot of it comes down to one question. How do we rekindle the spirit of progress and innovation that will ensure that America's success goes forward into the future? The answer must be an economic call to action, an innovation agenda. We don't want our country to go down as a consuming, importing, debt-ridden nation. Instead, we need to be a country that thinks, that invents, that makes stuff, and exports to the world. We need to be a country where you go in the store, you buy the best good at the best price, and you turn it over, and it says made in the USA. Minnesota native, New York Times columnist, we need to do some nation building in our own nation. Now, what am I talking about here? I'm talking about building more biodiesel plants like there are in Mason City, Iowa, not in Mumbai, India. I'm talking about running an electric car battery factory in Detroit, Michigan, and not in Seoul, South Korea. I'm talking about setting up more wind farms like you have in Hancock County, Iowa, and not in Hamburg, Germany. And I'm talking about designing the latest energy efficiency windows in Warroad, Minnesota, and selling them to the world. But let's not mince words. This isn't going to be easy. It's going to be hard work. To do all this, we need to get our nation's priorities back in order. We need to chart a path to the future. We need to stick to it. We need people like Roxanne Conlon in Washington. And let's be clear, we're going to have some fights along the way. I know that I'm ready for that fight. And I know Roxanne is. I know your governor is. I sure know Tom is. And I know all your Democratic congressmen are ready for this fight. Instead of giving tax breaks to high-flying financiers who simply churn money, let's do something radical. Let's reward actual job creation in the United States of America. Instead of subsidizing Wall Street for its subprime behavior, let's support Main Street businesses and Main Street products and services. Instead of allowing Wall Street to play Russian roulette with our future and coddling the corporations who fight change, from the insurance companies to the drug companies to big oil, let's stand up for our people. And by the way, despite what the United States Supreme Court may say, big corporations aren't people. People are people. discussion isn't always about what's right and what's left, it's about what's right and what's wrong. And what's right is our positive, optimistic vision for our nation. What's right is American jobs, fair treatment for union workers, and good wages and benefits for a hard day's work. And we can thank Congressman Braley for his work on this. What's right? What's right is a foreign policy that treats our allies with respect, hostile nations with resolve, and terrorists without mercy. What's right is a first-class education system that prepares our students to meet the demands of a changing world, and we should thank Congressman Loebsack for his work with education. What's right is treating our veterans with the respect that they deserve. Thank you, Congressman Boswell. When our soldiers in Minnesota and Iowa and the National Guard and Reserve and active duty, when they signed up for war, there wasn't a waiting line. And when they come home to the United States of America and they need a job, or they need health care, or they need an education, there shouldn't be a waiting line in this country. What's right is a homegrown energy jobs economy. We will have real energy independence when we invest, not in the oil cartels of the Mideast, but in the farmers and the workers of the Midwest. And you know, once we pass a sensible energy bill with a focus on biofuels and biomass and wind and solar and other renewables, the head of BP won't have to complain anymore about getting his life back. You know why? We will give him a life. We'll put him to work on the front lines of Iowa's next wind turbine manufacturing factory, right? That's a life for him. Or how about pitching manure in a new methane generator on a dairy farm in southern Minnesota? We can give him that life. Come on over.